Hello everyone and welcome to a bit more Hazelwick Yellow. It's absolutely fantastic to see you all, or certainly to be here and to meet with lots of you. So it's been a really lovely week, great weather. I hope you're all keeping incredibly well. Please say hello in the comments and let me know who you are. So introduce yourself please in the comments so we know who is here. And then we can have a look at what we're going to try and get through this week. I reckon about 25 minutes worth this week. And we've got an awful lot to cover. It's all about moving things this week. That's the grand plan. So the fun language fact for the day is that there's a word called bokeh, and it's from the Japanese language, and it's about the aesthetic quality of the blur of an image, which is a grand way of saying it's how nice the blur looks on an image, the blurry bit, and it's referred to as bokeh. So building up that professional vocabulary so that you can sound like you know what you're doing. So who have we got here? We've got Lizette. Hi Lizette, nice to see you. Hello Miss Brennan, it's good to catch up with you. We've got Catboy, and I'm trying to think who Catboy is. That was Gabe, wasn't it? We've got Katie. Hi Katie. We've got Ria, Mr. Ledbetter. Bonjour, ça va? We've got Daisy. Hi Davis. Rohan, nice to see you. Great picture, Rohan. We'll get to yours a bit later on. You can't beat a language fact, can you? We've got Lily. Hi, how are you? And we've got we've got there, Little Frosty. We've got Adam as well. All right, so let's crack on. The plan is about how things move and how we can best photograph them. So the plan of attack today is this. I'm going to kick off again with your brilliant photos. They were so good last week that I didn't actually believe you could keep the same quality going, but actually, yes, there are prizes this week, and there's a separate adult and student competition this week. I haven't forgotten, as I can see that nor have you, so that there will be definitely prizes this week, but I will explain all of that. And I've got Miss Brennan, who's going to be keeping score, because I know that we need to get things absolutely right. So the first job is your brilliant photos. Then we're going to do a little section called Masterpiece, where I'm going to pick a really famous photographer and look at one of their images and see what they were thinking about when they took it. Today's photographer is Ansel Adams. There's going to be a lightning quiz to see what you remember from last time. 5 questions, 10 points per question. Then we'll look at the technique part. We'll come in 2 bits. First of all, panning for blur. We'll look at panning as a technique that you can use to blur the background and keep the subject sharp, but I'll talk more about that later. I have a fiendishly difficult spot the difference competition, and I do mean very, very hard, which we're going to do a minute's worth today, and then that's your challenge for the rest of the week to see if you can solve it. There are several parts to that. I'll get to that shortly. Then we've got a little video that I've made on reducing shutter speed to increase blur. So we can have a look at that. It's about a 4-minute clip, and then we'll talk about next week's assignment. So that's we've got ahead of us in the next 20 or 25 minutes or so. Right then, your brilliant photos. Shajiv, you are becoming a flower and plant expert. The vibrancy of the colours here I thought was staggering. What an absolutely wonderful photograph. Oh, and by the way, I put all of your photos into the newsletter, and they were so pleased to accept them. I don't think they can all go in this week because the newsletter was running to many pages. So if yours aren't in there this week, they'll be in there next time, as long as your parents or guardians have said that I can use your images. So check your emails in case, or check your parents' emails or your guardians' emails in case they didn't come through. So the prizes, I should explain, Mr. Led, because I know this is vitally important. The prizes is going to be this week and next week, and it'll be the total points that you accumulate over this week and next week, which will then lead to a prize. I think absolute clarity is important. This was Miss Brennan's shot, which Mr. Ledbetter somehow knew that this was overlooking a golf course, which I still find a bit extraordinary. But I thought that, first of all, you used the foliage and the branches and the leaves to hide out the sun, to give a beautiful green glow to everything. And you've got that fabulous branch going curly, whirly, whirly absolutely everywhere, which is fantastic. What a great shot that is, Miss Brennan. We will go on and look at Ria, who captured this wonderful, wonderful sunset. The prizes from last week, I should explain. In fact, the 2 people who I awarded prizes to last week, the book which I'm going to send to you is out of stock at the moment, but it's on back order. And this isn't just an excuse. There actually aren't any there because it's such a popular book. So it will be winging its way to you too. I think it was Katie and Erin. So it's in the post. but that's not an excuse that it actually isn't in stock at the bookshop. So this is Ria's fabulous picture of a sunset. I love that little flash of, I don't know, red, orange, mid-sky there. Absolutely beautiful. Really, really good. What a fantastic image that was. And again, what's impressive is how many of you actually tried to answer the assignment and use some of the techniques that we'd looked at last week. I thought that was brilliant. I love this from Gabe. I thought this was clever on so many different angles. Talking of angles, the fact the light's so low, which is why the shadow's so long. The fact that the Lego person is facing away from us and you're wondering what on earth they're about to go into battle against. I thought that was a really clever shot, and you've got that diagonal line which we know adds tension. So what a fantastic image that was, Gabe. Erin, with this reflection, I thought you'd put it in upside down when I first looked at it, and then saw the riverbank and thought, oh, it's such a fabulous reflection. It really is. It's so crystal clear. And again, it's beautifully framed. I think it's just a great shot, Erin. One of many great shots that you've produced. Absolutely fabulous. I love this from Emily. What amazing colours. Those deep, warm, vibrant colours. And are just a beautiful way of capturing a sunset. And it's really, really sort of abstract art. That would sit proudly on many people's walls. That's fantastic effort, Emily. Really good shot. Rohan, you outdid yourself here. Where can I start? I just think this is a fabulous, fabulous image. Why? Because you've got a frame within a frame. Why? Because you've got the wood grain, which really works well, and then you've got it bleached out, the sort of the highlighted part there, and then you've got the fingers, which are really spiky and really quite spooky. I'm not sure I'd want this on my wall because I'd be having nightmares, but I think that is a really, really stunning image, Rohan. Honestly, I thought that was fabulous, just unbelievably clever. What else have we got? We've got Katie with the diagonal lines, the wonderful reflections in the pond, river, whatever it is. I think it's a gorgeous shot. It just seems so still. It's as though the clouds have been painted on the water. Again, diagonal lines, those stones cutting across from bottom right to top left. What a great image. Leads the eye. Great composition. This is Katie. And again, we talked about hiding the sun. Hiding the sun behind the green foliage of the tree gives you this dappled sunlight. Beautiful shot. You've got the shadow going from bottom left, that diagonal cutting out towards the middle. I think that's a really beautiful shot and actually stunning in its simplicity. I think it works really, really well. We go on. Callum, cats are always winners. Cats always have a place, as do dogs, on any of these. So it's great to see your cat. If you could let us know his or her name, Callum, if you're around, that would be incredibly helpful. But what a fabulous cat that is. Erin, I really liked this. We all love cats. Cats are great, aren't they? Hello, Mr. Chalmers. Welcome. It's really nice to see you as well. This from Erin inside. Was this a car or a train or a bus? I'm assuming a car, Erin. What I love about this, because I can just about make out a police car or a traffic officer's car out there. I can see some traffic lights. But you've really created a piece of abstract art from what may have been quite a dull journey from A to B. So I think that's a really, really clever idea there, Erin. Well done. And it's having that eye, which is something we'll talk about later when we look at Ansel Adams, having that eye to be able to have that vision to see that a picture is possible. This from Daisy. Love this. Love the colours. We talked about the colour of light, didn't we, last time? And here we go. I was going to ask whether you were on foot or in a car, and then I saw it's taken on a motorway, so I really hope you were in a car. Again, wonderful green colours on the in the sky there, the chimney. It's a really well taken image, and it does have that industrial feel, but some crazy colours you've got there, Daisy. I love that one. Aditya with his enigmatically titled tree. I think we're all going to need to work slightly on some of our titles, because when I put these into the newsletter, I was being asked by Mrs. Ralph for titles for each of them, and most of you had put some titles, so get a title in there if you can. I love the way that you've dialed down the exposure, Aditya, to give an almost silhouette feel to this image, and that it helps us focus on the shape of that beautiful tree. So I think that's a really lovely shot, and the sky's quite menacing overhead, isn't it? What a great image. Sharjeev again with more fabulous I think this is my favourite from you for this week, Sharjeev. I love this this rose, and just the way you've captured those raindrops on the petals it's just staggering. Absolutely fabulous. And nothing in the background to mess it up. This, the first of two, I think, from Rachel L. I love the fact that you've hidden the sun behind the leaves. I love the fact you've brought out the translucence of the leaf. And I think also it's just a very well constructed image. And again, you've got that diagonal. It's just a series of beautiful shapes, beautiful abstract shapes from something that you probably walk past every day. What a great shot that is. And then you went in and did a bit more detail, Rachel. And this was a bug that you found. And again, this is what photographers do. You saw this detail on the leaf. You saw the translucence of the leaf. And you picked up those beautiful lines. I think that's an absolutely wonderful image. I wouldn't want that thing on me, but it's a wonderful, wonderful image. Emily, a cracking sunset. You put the sun behind the trees, and I think that really added something here. It's a great composition, and the way that the ground has become almost like a sort of smoke machine effect. You don't know what's down there. I'm assuming it's a field of some kind, but again, using the golden hours, that magical time when the sun starts to go down, and you pick up these beautiful colours. So I think that is a really, really lovely image, Emily. Well done. What else have we got? Ria, I absolutely love this. What colours? They are absolutely fabulous. That purple of the sun setting. It's like a scene from. It is like a watercolour, isn't it? It's absolutely fabulous. I think, Mr. Chalmers, this reminds me a little bit of, I don't know, of a volcano. There's something so vibrant and so beautiful about this. What a fabulous picture. And also, you've captured such a lot of sky. It's a nice wide image as well. Excellent. So, your pictures, please keep them coming. I'm going to talk about the assignment at the end, but obviously it's going to be about photographing moving things. That's the plan going forward. But I can tell you now, it's quite a frustrating thing to do, because when you try and shoot moving things, they often don't behave in the way that you'd like them to. So this next segment, I want to talk about a famous photographer, a few facts, and just talk through one picture. We're going to do Ansel Adams this week. We're going to do Annie Leibovitz next week. She's a great portrait photographer, some cracking images of John Lennon, and we'll get to Annie next week. But let's focus on Ansel Adams this week. He shares his birthday with me, and that's the birthday, not the year, Miss Brennan. I can already see her mind working that way. He was born in 1902, died in 84, landscape photographer. The sort of images he was best known for, you can see on the left-hand side. I think it's called the Tetons, but I'm not sure. This is in Wyoming, in Canada. Absolutely beautiful. You can see how, the way he's got that river snaking out as far as the eye can see, the mountains in the background. What an absolutely fabulous vista that is. He co-founded a group called F64. I knew when I was going to say I shared a birthday, I could hear your brain working. 1902 sounds about right, eh? So he co-founded a group called F64. Now that F number will become more clear to you the more technical expertise you gain in photography. But he produced this, he part of this group, and their main focus was on producing really sharp images and images with a full tonal range. Now, without droning on too much, there was an exhibition of Ansel Adams's work in Greenwich a couple of years ago. And the extraordinary thing, you go and look at his images, which were 6 feet high and 4 feet wide, and there would be one part of his image which was black, only one very small part, and everything else had a different tone to it. He was a master at doing that, and also a master in the darkroom. Of course, this is way before digital. If you look down on the right-hand side, that's the sort of medium format camera. He'd have been lugging up these mountains to get pictures like that. He was a great believer in the environment and the national parks, and in fact, he's been credited with actually national parks being extended, because the beauty of his photographs have drawn people's attention to how important it is to have these spaces that you look after. And he's more associated, most closely associated with Yosemite National Park in the USA. So we're going to focus on one image. And this is an image that he took in 1941, and this is called Moonrise in Hernandez in New Mexico. There are several different layers to this image, and I'm going to let you look at it while I tell you the story about how this came about. He'd been out shooting all day, and he'd got a few passable negatives, but nothing particularly good. And he said, I made a few passable negatives that day and several exasperating trials with subjects that would not bend to visualization, which I think is a fantastic way of saying he just couldn't take a photo of what he was looking at. If you remember that image I showed you, I think on week 1, where I was standing in a beautiful place, but I still managed to capture an image that showed nothing. So he was on the way home, having not really achieved much with his day, and he saw this scene. So he stopped the car, grabbed all of his stuff out of the car, but crucially he couldn't find his light meter. And he needed his light meter to work out what the correct exposure was for this image, because of course it was dark, as you can tell, because the moon's up there. And then he realised, as he was flapping around, that actually he had done some studying on the luminance of the moon, and he knew what exposure setting to use. So with that little bit of knowledge, he set the right exposure on his camera, and there we are. The rest is history. This is widely regarded as his most popular image. It's not my favourite, but I can see why it's the most popular. Because actually, if you look down at the bottom there, on the extreme left-hand side, that is a church. You can begin to see all of those crosses coming out, and that's a graveyard next to it. Then you've got the sort of the plains in front of it, followed by the mountains, and then these beautiful clouds, which I mean, it's something like northern lights, aren't they? Really, really beautiful. And if you can see on the right-hand side, the clouds were starting to disperse, and his panic was that the clouds were really vanishing quickly. So he had a very limited amount of time to grab that image. So there we go. It's nice to think about what happens behind a picture. So that's Ansel Adams and Moonrise in Hernandez, New Mexico. Right, here we go. This is your time to get involved now. This is where Miss Brennan has kindly agreed to be the keeper of these scores, because Mr. Ledbetter is particularly competitive. Now, this is for adults and students, so get your answer in as soon as you can. It's 10 points for a correct answer. We've got 5 questions. This is going to carry across 2 weeks, just to be clear. Right? Is everyone ready for this? So I'm going to count 3, 2, 1, and it's going to be the first person to put the correct answer in the comments, right? First person to put the correct answer in the comments. Here is question number 1. From which language does the word photography originate? Bon courage à tout le monde. From which language does the word photography? Well, this is very, very interesting. We do have an adult who has, yes, we have an adult and we have a student. So surprise, surprise, Mr. Ledbetter was the first adult to answer correctly. Let me go through it. And Aditya is the winner. Latin was close, but Greek is what it was. So indeed it was Greek. All right, so that's the first question. So we've got, I hope you're keeping score, Miss Brennan, because I can never remember. But Mr. Ledbetter has to have 10 points, because that is important. Let's not mess that one up this time. So let's go on to question 2. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. What does photos graphein mean? You'll have to, I apologise for my pronunciation with Greek, because I can't speak it. But what does it mean? Mr. Ledbetter is encouraging Gabe. Yeah. Oh, do we need to take points off? Mr. Ledbetter, what's he spelled incorrectly? No, you're absolutely right, Mr. Chalmers. We will deduct points. Especially as a languages teacher, he should lose some points there. Painting with light, that is fabulous. That's the winner there, painting with light, and that is Gabe. So that's 10 points to Gabe. You're all coming in with the right answers now. Writing with light or painting with light, yes, that's exactly what it is. Painting, drawing, writing with light, which is of course something that you need in order to take photographs. Light certainly helps. And actually we're talking about shutter speed later on, so that's kind of links in rather nicely. Let's move on. Next question. Here we go. Question 3. How would you describe direct light which hits the subject from only one angle? This was something that we looked at last time round. How would you describe direct light which hits the subject from only one angle? Oh, yet again, it's Mr. Ledbetter straight in there with harsh. And Adam was the first student. Well done, Adam. Good effort. You pipped Katie to the post. So Ledbetter again, shocking. So Adam is in there with harsh. Katie was second. So Adam gets his 10 points. Lizette was in there. Harsh, 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 harsh. Brilliant. And if you can remember, not that I want to pick on you, Erin, we were looking at your brick photograph and thinking, why is it so bleached? And that was an example of harsh light. Right, number 4. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Oh, that's the answer. Let's try number 4. We described light as having quality, direction, and something else. What is that something else? Got strength. Strength. No. Not strength, exposure. Oh, I love this buzzer. I will stop in a second. But someone get it right, please. Strength, exposure, focus. Nope. Oh, I know why Jeremy Paxman's so sarcastic now. It's very tempting. Brightness. I was making a cup of tea at that point. That's your excuse. Oh, well, will you look at that? It's Gabe who got it right with colour. Well done. I'm sure I've got something. There we go. That is the correct answer. I almost pressed the screaming goat, which is funny but not really relevant. So contrast. No, it's colour. Those are the three qualities we talked about. The quality of the light itself in terms of it being harsh or not, or it being diffused. We talked about direction and we talked about colour. And then that's last week, and we went into the colour of the light in the morning, the colour of the light in the day. And of course, all of the artificial lights have a colour as well. So for example, fluorescent bulbs, they've got a sort of a green hue to them, horrible things to photograph with. Your tungsten bulbs are quite yellow. So all of these have got a different colour temperature and they emit a different light. Our eyes tend to adjust, but cameras aren't quite so good. I can't remember, was that my last question? This is the last one. Right, here we go. Which is the worst time of day to take photos if it's sunny and cloudless? I think there'll be some very quick answers about this. Oh, Gabe is 1 point ahead of Mr. Ledbetter. That's what happens if you go make a cup of tea. Oh, midday! Aditya was straight in there, straight in there. That's Aditya with a correct answer. It was midday. Of course, yes, lunchtime, midday. Of course, it's not actually exactly midday. It depends. But that sort of time of day, if it's a cloudless sky and the sun's out, you're going to end up with harsh shadows and it's going to be not a great image. So who was the winner of that, Miss Brennan? If you could put the scores in the comments, that would be amazing. Who said lunch first? Did I get it wrong? Midday. No, I had. You did say lunch first, but I had a midday before that, Lizette. But we will look back at the comments and make sure that we're fair. Right. So let's go on to the technical part today. I'm going to whiz through this quite quickly because don't forget you can access this. This video afterwards on YouTube. I'll get the thing up straight away. One of the plans today is this technique of panning for blur. If you look at those images at the bottom left there, you can see they've both got one thing in common. Well, they both got two things in common. One, that they're both modes of transport, but that's not the key thing. The subject in both instances is sharp, in sharp focus, whereas the background is blurred. And there's a particular technique for achieving this, and it's called panning. And if you look at that image on the top leftish, the sort of technique that you use is the same one that you might have used when you try taking a panorama with your phone. You know, when you press the shutter release button and then you've got to turn all the way round, and it's actually very hard to not go up and down as you're doing it. So these are the important key considerations when you try to use this panning technique. First of all, turn the camera to follow the subject. Well, that's fairly obvious. Secondly, don't move your feet. Just move your waist and try to rotate smoothly. And then try to rotate smoothly along one axis, just going from left to right, not going up or down. Don't try to pan more than a quarter of a turn, 90 degrees, because you'll end up wobbling the camera. But you can actually twist through 90 degrees fairly well, but it does take a bit of practice. Other considerations. You are following your subject. Start panning beforehand. So start panning before you take your picture, or else you end up with a different type of blur, which is not that pleasant. Where are we? Start the pan before the... Continue the pan after the subject, after you've pressed the shutter release button, after you've pressed the take picture button. Keep panning, because that way people tend to snatch at it at the end of it, and again there's some motion blur at the end of it. So the challenge here is try to reduce the shutter speed by 2 stops. And I'm going to show you a bit about that later, but it works better if you go into manual mode on your camera and you reduce the shutter speed by 2 stops. And I'll show you how to do that on your phone a bit later on. And also, can you do it from a moving vehicle? And I think that we had Erin and we had Emily who achieved something with that a bit earlier on. So that's at one level higher, is to try and do a pan from a moving vehicle. And that can be quite a challenge, but it can look fabulous when it actually works. Okay, so we've got lots of people celebrating their wins. Well done, that's a good effort. So let's move on to the next thing. Competition time. Now, this next competition is, let me try to explain it. It's a spot the difference competition. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. By the way, Erin, I've used your image of Crawley Town Centre during the lockdown, so it's a kind of ghost town image. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. I want you to write in the comments as soon as you see a difference between picture A and picture B. Now, picture A was the image that Erin took, and picture B is me having spent far too long messing around on Photoshop and removing things and adding things. But I have to say to you, this is not your average spot the difference and you'll sort it out in 2 minutes. This is a fiendishly hard one. 10 points per difference that you spot, and the answers need to go into the comments. And Miss Brennan, if you could possibly try to keep a handle on who's getting the answers right, that would be great. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. 60 seconds starting from now. Guys are good. The two picks are named A and B. I give Aditya 10 points for that. Fair play. Good eye, Mr. Chalmers. No one else spotted that one. Yeah, well, Katie, that is certainly true. So, 15 more seconds. We'll have to go back afterwards, Miss Brennan, and look at this, because the answers are coming in faster than I can even read them. You guys are good. Right, 10 more seconds. Okay, so that's all we've got time for on that. We will go through this afterwards and total up who got most of the right answers. But you were very, very quick on this. But I have an extra challenge for the competition this week. So obviously there are 20 differences between image A and image B. One or two of them are fiendishly difficult. And let's see if I can explain this. So once you've found the differences between image A is the original, B is the one that I've made the changes to. Once you've found the differences, you need to plot on the grid below which grid the differences are in, and once you've done that, on each of those squares there is a letter, and there are 20 differences. Those 20 letters actually spell, surprise surprise, a 20-letter word. The only key thing to remember here is that I'm starting at the top left at P and going PNY all the way down, and then you go back to the beginning of the next row down. So then you go to E, you do all of that row, and then you go to H. So if you plot all of those in that order, that will give you a 20-letter word. The first person to email hoy9@hazelwick.org.uk with the answer will receive a prize. Can I make a recommendation? If you're looking at this on a device, which I assume you will be, look at it at 100%, because I have been quite sneaky about what I put in there. But there we are. So that's the competition. I was amazed how quickly you got through some of those. That was incredibly impressive. So let's go on and look at the next bit. We've got two more things to do. It's the second part of the technique, and then we're going to set up the assignment for this week, and then that's it. We're done. So I'm going to show you a video that I made on shutter speed. I was going to do a live demonstration, but it became too difficult to do. So it was easier for me to make a video. But I want to explain to you what you're going to be looking at first of all. So when I play the video, you will see that there are three different sort of scenes, or three different boxes, if you like. On the left-hand side is my phone, the in-camera view of my phone. And this is the best one to look at to see the images that I'm trying to take. And this is all about capturing. You see at the back there we've got Darth Maul, and I'm going to have that that dice swinging backwards and forwards, and looking at how you can reduce the shutter speed on your phone to get some kind of effect. So you can see what is actually going on there is in B, and there's some great competition going on here. The post in the middle of the street. Live camera, on the right hand side, that's where you can see where I'm clicking. So you can see the dials that I'm rotating and where I'm clicking. So just to kind of sensitize you to what you're going to be looking at. So this is about 4 minutes long, and don't forget this will be on the YouTube channel in about 10 minutes time. Welcome everyone. Today I've set up a little experiment to try to show you how we can achieve desirable motion blur. The scene that you can see is Darth Maul, who is standing still, and there's a dice that I have dangling from a piece of twine. The plan is I'm going to get that dice moving and try to get some desirable motion blur as we change the shutter speed. Now I'm going to use an app which is called Obscura, which is this one here. There are many different apps that you can use. Many of them are free. I had a play with Visco earlier, that works really well. All of these apps allow you to adjust the shutter speed manually. Typically you download the app and then they want to charge you if you want to have additional filters or any additional features, but there are many out there, and I'll give you a list of those that you can actually adjust the shutter speed as you go along. So what I'm going to do now is get this dice moving, so bear with me a second. And I'll simply fire off a few shots and see if I can capture. Well, I might have got something there. Let's have a look. It's really quite hard. You'll see this is a case of trial and error. Let's go back and see what we got. Miss, miss, almost, ooh, and success. So at 1/60th of a second, you can see we are already getting some motion blur there. You can see that it is still a dice, and you can see it took me 5 or 6 shots just to get that. Now it isn't that this is the shot of a century, it's that we are able to control this, and this is at 1/60th of a second. I'll talk to you a little bit about shutter speed. When you use a camera, there are a couple of different ways of controlling the light that's allowed to hit the sensor. So obviously there's a light sensitive sensor. It used to be film in the olden days, it was a light sensitive film, but you can control the light coming into your camera using the shutter, and the shutter is like a curtain that opens and closes, and you can dictate how long it's open for. So we tried a 60th of a second and we got a good deal of motion blur. So let's go in and I can click on the SPD, the speed button there, and I can move this dial to the left and I can open the shutter for longer. So let's try now doing it for 1/3 of a second. And you can see that now my image has got brighter because the camera's got nothing else it can do to actually control the exposure. Things will just get brighter and brighter and brighter now. So I'm going to turn the light down slightly so that Darth Maul isn't totally bleached out. There we go. Just a slight dialing down there. Let's get the dice moving. And let's try and see if I can do better this time. No, ooh, that was better, I think. Maybe. Let's see what we get. You get into a rhythm where you start to figure out where it should be. I'm hoping I've got a few there. These are the last ones up here. That was a fail. That was a fail. Ooh, bit more blur. Now there we go. But you can see how at 1/3 of a second we're getting significantly more motion blur. There we go. So that's a big difference, the one that we saw before. Let's try now and push it as far as we can. Let's go back to our camera, go to settings again, dial this right down to 1/2 a second. You can see it's now totally bleached out because there's way too much light going in. Let's turn the light off, I guess. Even then, no, that's now gone for a whole second. That is too long. Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's try 1/2 a second. Well, this should definitely give us some motion blur. So let's have a go at this. We'll be getting ghost trails this time round. Let's get this thing moving. And let's see what we get when we shoot this. So let's have a look at our pictures of that and see what we get. Now there we go, hurrah, it worked. So that is what you get back there, that's what you get for 1/2 a second, is these wonderful ghost trails. So it's throwing all sorts of errors at me. So there we go, That was at, I think, half a second. So you can see how you can go in and change the shutter speed in your camera, and you can get a completely different effect just by changing that setting. So there we are. I hope that all made some degree of sense to you. You'll notice I put in that slide which said you can use burst mode if you want to. That's because my daughter said to me, why don't you just use burst mode, Dan? It's much easier. And I went, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. So I think the minute you stop being a student, you stop learning. So there we are. Burst mode would work an awful lot better than just trying to shoot each one individually. So I hope that gives you some ideas about how you can muck around at home and try to get things moving. I don't think, strictly speaking, that Trivial Pursuit dice are part of the Star Wars trilogy in any way, but needs must. But that worked fairly well. So let's talk about the last thing, which is the assignment, the challenge for this week. And obviously it's to capture anything that moves. Try panning to capture a moving subject and try to use the hints and tips that I gave you earlier on. Try changing the shutter speed. You can download one of these free apps, it's fairly easy to do, and see if you can create motion blur. Try to take photos while you're moving. And you can see below you get some amazing effects when you photograph water that's moving. You can use a longer shutter speed and end up with an effect like on the left hand side there. We get this sort of dreamy fairy tale type effect with water, or on the right hand side where you stop it in mid flow, and they're both produce very different effects. So that's it. We've come to the end of our time. I hope you have learned something today and enjoyed it. I'm looking forward hugely to seeing the images that you produce. Now, in terms of who won, Gabe, I think it was a draw, Miss Brennan said, between you and Lizette. So we will need to go and look through those. And also, I think you found so many differences with the competition. We'll have a look at that and see who actually won it. Oh, and Mr. Ledbetter obviously was the winner among the adults. How could I possibly forget? And we will post the winners on the Google Classroom site. So it's been an absolute pleasure to meet up with all of you again. I will see you again, same time, same place. Thank you, Mr. Ledbetter. Thank you, Miss Brennan. And thank you, Mr. Chalmers, for coming along. It's really appreciated, and the students really love having you here. So thank you ever so much, and we'll see you in exactly 1 week's time. Bye-bye.